This is the story of a town that has been betrayed twice, once by history, once by a corporation, and the second time was supposed to be the salvation from the first. The Amana Colonies sit in Iowa County, Iowa, 7 small villages arranged across 26,000 acres of rolling farmland about 20 miles southwest of Cedar Rapids. Today, they are a tourist destination. Craft shops, German restaurants, a winery, a furniture store that still uses 19th century joinery techniques. On the surface, Amana looks like a living postcard of a simpler America. But underneath that postcard is a story most visitors never hear. A story about what happens when a community runs out of options, and what happens when the thing that saved them decides to leave. To understand what is happening to Amana in 2026, you have to go back to 1855. The people who built Amana didn't come to Iowa looking for land. They came looking for freedom. The Community of True Inspiration was a German pietist movement, a religious sect that had been harassed, suppressed, and periodically persecuted across Europe since its founding in 1714. They believed that God still spoke directly to living people through inspired elders, a doctrine that made them deeply unpopular with both state churches and secular governments. By the early 1840s, the community was large enough and restless enough that their leader, Christian Metz, received what they called an Eingebung, an inspired word, to leave Germany entirely. They came first to New York, settling near Buffalo on a tract of land they called Ebenezer. But America was growing faster than they had anticipated, and the city was closing in around them. They needed space. They needed separation from a world they considered spiritually corrosive. And so, in 1855, they moved again, this time to the river valleys of Iowa, where land was cheap, and the nearest city was far enough away to keep the world at bay. They built 7 villages, and they named the largest one Amana, from the Hebrew, meaning to remain faithful or to believe truly. It was not accidental. It was a statement of intent. For nearly 80 years, the Amana Colonies operated as one of the most successful communal societies in American history. Everything was shared: the land, the food, the labor, the profits. Community members received housing, meals at communal kitchens, medical care, and a small annual allowance. In return, they worked wherever the community needed them: in the fields, the woolen mills, the flour mill, the furniture shops, the calico printing works. There were no wages, there was no private property, there was only the community. And it worked. The Amana Colonies developed a reputation for quality that stretched far beyond Iowa. Their woolen goods were prized, their furniture was built to last generations. At their peak, roughly 1,800 people lived across the 7 villages, producing nearly everything they needed from the soil and the workshops around them. But the world they had tried to escape kept closing in. By the late 1920s, the cracks were already showing. Young people raised inside the community had grown up watching a different world through the edges: automobiles on the roads, radios, movies, the whole accelerating current of 20th century American life. Many were leaving. And then the Great Depression arrived. The communal model depended on selling surplus goods to the outside world. When those markets collapsed, so did the community's revenue. By 1931, the Amana Society was operating at a loss, and the elders faced an impossible choice. On June 1st, 1932, the community voted. The result was overwhelming. They would end communal living. They would reorganize as a for-profit corporation. Members would receive shares in the new Amana Society and wages for their labor. They would keep the land, the villages, the traditions, but the dream of a world apart, a world held in common, was over. They called it the Great Change. For many who had lived their entire lives inside the commune, it was the end of everything they had known. But survival required adaptation, and so the new Amana Society immediately started looking for ways to generate revenue in the private economy. 2 years later, in 1934, a small group of community members began making a product they had real experience with: cooling equipment. They called the new company Amana Refrigeration, Incorporated. It was, in its quiet way, a second founding. The commune was gone. The corporation had begun. Amana Refrigeration grew steadily through the 1940s and the 1950s, eventually pioneering the first commercially practical home upright freezer and the first home microwave oven priced for mass-market consumers, the appliance that would end up in nearly every American kitchen. The brand became nationally recognized. In 1965, Raytheon Corporation acquired it, and the Amana name began its long journey through American corporate consolidation. Raytheon eventually sold Amana to Goodman Global. Goodman sold it to Maytag, and in 2006, Whirlpool Corporation, headquartered, with its own complicated history, in Benton Harbor, Michigan, acquired Maytag in a deal worth nearly $2 billion, bringing the Amana brand, the Amana manufacturing facility, and the workers of Iowa County into the Whirlpool family. For the Amana Colonies, it was a relationship that had become load-bearing. The manufacturing plant employed hundreds of local workers. It was the economic spine of a community that had already survived one reinvention. The colony's tourist economy and craft businesses were real, but they weren't enough on their own. The appliance plant was the thing that kept Iowa County families in Iowa County. Whirlpool, for its part, was one of the largest appliance manufacturers on Earth, operating factories across North America, Europe, Latin America, and Asia. The Amana facility was one node in a global production network. But for the workers inside it, for the families whose mortgages and grocery bills depended on it, it wasn't a node, it was everything. For nearly 2 decades, the arrangement held. Whirlpool produced appliances in Amana. Workers built careers, families stayed. Then came 2026. On February 17, 2026, Whirlpool filed a worker adjustment and retraining notification with the state of Iowa. The WARN notice, the federal mechanism that requires companies to give 60 days notice before mass layoffs, listed 341 employees at the Amana facility. Their last day of work was scheduled for March 9, 2026. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, whose Local 1526 represented those workers, issued a statement that didn't mince words. "This is not an isolated incident," the union wrote. "It is a pattern of corporate abandonment. Each round of layoffs delivers another devastating blow to a community that has depended on good union jobs to sustain thousands of Iowa families for generations." The pattern part mattered. These weren't the first Amana layoffs. Less than a year earlier, roughly 250 additional union members at the same facility had received pink slips. Whirlpool wasn't reorganizing its Amana operations. It was dismantling them, moving production to a $160 million facility in Ramos Arizpe in the Mexican state of Coahuila, a maquiladora zone manufacturing hub that the company had been quietly expanding for months. Workers displaced by moves like this can apply for trade adjustment assistance, a federal program specifically designed for jobs lost to trade and offshoring, but those benefits are a floor, not a replacement for the careers being taken. On March 6th, 3 days before the official last day, a few dozen workers, former workers, and union representatives gathered at the Amana Performing Arts Center to talk about what was happening to them. Mike Ryan, recently retired after decades at the plant, remembered being laid off once before, 20 years earlier. He said he had a new baby at the time, and yeah, it was scary. He had been hired back after 6 months. This time, he told the people in that room, the situation felt different. He was right. The ripple effects were already reaching beyond the plant walls. A supplier in the nearby town of Kelowna, a company called Engineered Plastic Components, that made parts specifically for Whirlpool's Amana operations, announced it would be closing entirely. No Whirlpool orders meant no business. The domino effect that union officials had warned about was already in motion, and the layoffs at the main facility were not even complete yet. Whirlpool did not describe the moves as abandonment. Companies rarely do. The language was the standard corporate vocabulary of efficiency, restructuring, and strategic alignment. Production moving to Mexico was framed as optimization, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement trade rules making cross-border manufacturing more attractive than ever. Workers losing their jobs were part of a broader transformation. In Whirlpool's annual filings, Iowa was a line item. In Iowa, Whirlpool was the story. What makes Amana different from Hillsborough or Janesville, where GM's closure eliminated thousands of jobs and reshaped the entire regional economy, or Benton Harbor itself? Whirlpool's own backyard, which has watched its largest employer steadily shift production abroad, is the specific depth of what's being lost. Most company towns have one story. A factory arrived, the town built itself around it, and the factory left. That arc is devastating enough. Amana has two. The first community, the utopian commune, the intentional world apart, collapsed under the weight of the Depression and its own internal contradictions. The people who survived that collapse built something new, something grounded in the market economy they had once rejected, and for nearly a century, that something sustained them. Whirlpool wasn't just a corporation in Amana. It was the second version of the thing the Amana Colonies had always been, a structure that organized labor, sustained families, and gave the community an identity and a reason to stay. When the commune ended in 1932, Amana Refrigeration filled the void. When Amana Refrigeration moved through its chain of corporate owners, the factory remained. The work remained. Iowa County remained. Now the work is going to Coahuila, and what's left behind is a town with a deep history of adaptation and an equally deep history of running out of options. The tourist economy is real. The restaurants and craft shops and the winery will keep going. The Amana Colonies are a registered National Historic Landmark, and visitors will keep coming to walk the original village streets and buy handmade furniture and drink locally produced wine. But the workers who built their lives around the plant, the ones who came up through the union, who learned the machinery, who clocked in year after year in a facility that their grandparents' community had essentially created, those workers are facing a different calculation. The tourist economy does not pay what the plant paid. The craft shops do not offer the benefits the union contract guaranteed. Iowa County is not Cedar Rapids. There are not abundant alternatives waiting around the corner. When the Great Change came in 1932, the people of Amana voted. They chose survival over ideology. They built something new from the pieces of what they had lost. It was painful, but it was theirs. In 2026, nobody asked the people of Amana to vote. The decision was made in a boardroom, filed with the state of Iowa, and communicated through a federal notification system designed to give workers 60 days to figure out what comes next. The community of true inspiration chose to leave Germany because they were being pushed out by forces they could not control. They chose to leave New York because the world was closing in. They chose to end communal life because economic reality left them no other option. And now, nearly 2 centuries after Christian Metz received his inspired word to find a place where the community could survive, the community's descendants are being told again that the place they built is no longer theirs to depend on. Whirlpool built Amana into something that could outlast the commune. And now, Whirlpool is walking away. The question no one in Iowa County can answer yet is whether there is a third version of Amana waiting to be built, or whether this is simply the end of the story the inspirationists started in 1714 and carried, against every odd, all the way to here.